The first sign something was wrong wasn't the scream. It was the silence. At the Interstellar Academy of Unified Species, silence never lasted long. The halls echoed with layered dialects, chittering mandibles, clicking crests, the low hum of atmospheric regulators tuned for a dozen different biologies. Apex predators from 12 star systems trained here, future commanders, hunters, tacticians. And they were loud. Until the doors opened. She walked in alone. Human. No escort. No exoframe. No visible augmentations. Just a dark academy uniform and a small data slate tucked under one arm. She looked ordinary. A few heads turned. Then more. The Carthan war cadet in the front row leaned back, crest lifting in faint amusement. "That's the transfer," he muttered to the Varelian beside him. "From the Gravity Crush world?" The Varelian's tendrils shifted with quiet disbelief. "She looks fragile." The word carried. Fragile. It reached her ears. She didn't react. She walked past rows of scaled shoulders and armored torsos, past bioluminescent crests and plated limbs, and chose the back row. The smallest desk. The least visible seat. She placed her slate down. Saturday. Folded her hands. The instructor entered moments later, a towering Valori strategist whose species evolved in a methane storm basin. His presence usually silenced rooms through instinct alone. Today, he didn't need to. "Advanced survival theory," he announced, voice resonant and calm. "Today's module, predator response coordination under environmental stress." A low murmur of anticipation spread. This was routine. These students were Apex-class cadets. Most had hunted sentient prey in controlled war zones. Some had already survived live combat simulations. The instructor activated the holofield. The classroom dissolved into dense jungle. Humidity spiked. Insect-like drones buzzed to simulate environmental noise. Towering foliage replaced walls. Students adjusted with mild interest. The Carthan cadet cracked his neck once. "Let's see how Earth handles real predators," he said quietly. The instructor's gaze shifted briefly toward the girl in the back row. "Human Elena Ward," he said. "You may observe." She nodded once. "Yes, sir." The simulation progressed smoothly for several minutes. Tracking drills, team positioning, scent triangulation. Then something changed. A faint distortion rippled at the far edge of the holofield. The instructor frowned. "That's not." The scent hit next. Copper. Warm. Real. Blood. Several cadets stiffened. "This isn't simulation grade," one whispered. Then the undergrowth parted. It stepped into view. A class. 7 Apex Predator. Imported for high-risk tactical studies. Not scheduled. Not contained. Its hide was layered in natural armor plating. 6 eyes scanned the environment with focused intelligence. Its jaws flexed once, testing the air. Security protocols should have triggered instantly. They didn't. The Carthan cadet rose halfway from his crouch. "Hold formation," he said. But formation was already breaking. Because the predator wasn't charging the largest threat. It wasn't moving toward the war cadet. It turned. Slowly. Toward the back row. Toward the smallest figure standing near a jungle tree projection. Elena Ward didn't scream. She didn't step back. She stood still. And as the predator lowered its stance, her posture changed. Subtle. Balanced. Measured. Her breathing slowed instead of quickened. The class saw it. Felt it. The shift. The Carthan cadet's crest lowered slowly. "She's afraid," someone whispered. But she wasn't. Her eyes locked onto the predators, and for the first time since she entered the room, she didn't look ordinary anymore. For half a second, no one moved. The jungle projection shimmered around them, thick leaves swaying in artificial wind. The scent of blood lingered heavy in the humid air. The Class 7 predator lowered itself, muscles coiling beneath armored hide. It chose her. Not the towering Carthan war cadet with plated forearms. Not the Varelian whose species hunted in corrosive oceans. The smallest target. The quiet one. Elena didn't step back. The predator lunged. It moved with explosive acceleration, 6 eyes narrowing, claws carving trenches into the simulated earth. Alien cadets scattered. A desk overturned. Someone shouted for containment fields. Another froze entirely, instincts colliding with training. Elena moved before the shout finished. Her chair scraped across the floor, then flipped in her hands. She didn't swing wildly. She angled it. The predator's mass collided with reinforced alloy instead of her ribs. The impact redirected its momentum just enough. It crashed past her shoulder instead of through her chest. Gasps filled the room. She was already moving. Not away. Toward. She pivoted low, rolled beneath a snapping hind limb, and came up behind the creature as it twisted in confusion. No scream. No panic. Just breath. In. Out. The predator's tail lashed. She ducked. A metal support rod from a shattered desk lay within reach. Her hand found it without looking. The Carthan cadet stared. "She's not enhanced," he muttered. The predator spun, jaws opening wide enough to shear through bone. Elena stepped inside the arc of its bite. Inside. She struck once. Precise. Not at the skull. Not at the armored chest. At the nerve cluster beneath the third rib plate, where the hide thinned for flexibility. The rod connected with a sharp crack. The predator staggered. A low, confused roar vibrated through the chamber. Several cadets flinched. Elena didn't. She shifted her stance again, weight balanced, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. The predator circled her now. Not charging. Assessing. It had expected prey behavior. Flight. Freeze. Scream. Instead, it found something watching it back. The instructor stood motionless near the control panel. Containment systems were cycling, but too slowly. He wasn't watching the predator anymore. He was watching the human. The creature lunged again, this time feinting left before snapping right. Elena didn't follow the head. She followed the shoulders. Her body rotated smoothly, rod rising to deflect a claw. The impact jarred her arm, but she held. Then she advanced one step. Deliberate. Predatory. The Class 7 hesitated. Just a fraction. It felt it. The shift in dynamic. The room felt it too. The Carthan war cadet lowered fully into a combat crouch, but he did not intervene. He was watching something he did not understand. Elena's eyes had changed. Not glowing. Not altered. Focused. Empty of fear. The predator let out a low growl. Elena mirrored it, not with sound but with posture. She wasn't reacting anymore. She was calculating angles, distance, openings. Security alarms finally blared. Containment field generators hummed as they reached charge threshold. The predator lunged one last time. Elena stepped forward instead of back. The rod came down again, same spot. Harder. The creature's legs buckled. A containment stun wave detonated across the room in a pulse of blue light, freezing the predator mid-collapse. Silence followed. Thick. Heavy. The jungle projection flickered and dissolved, revealing the shattered classroom. Desks overturned. Students wide-eyed. Breathing uneven. Elena lowered the rod slowly. Her pulse was steady. The Carthan cadet stared at her. "You didn't panic." She blinked once, confused. "Why would I?" And that was the moment the class began to understand. The predator hadn't chosen wrong. It had simply chosen something it didn't recognize. The containment field faded. The predator lay immobilized beneath a shimmering blue barrier, its armored chest rising slowly, stunned but alive. No one moved. The classroom no longer looked like a jungle. It looked like a battlefield aftermath. Overturned desks, scored flooring, fractured hollow emitters sparking faintly. And in the center of it, Elena Ward stood with a bent alloy rod in her hand. The instructor was the first to speak. "Medical teams are en route," he said calmly, though his voice carried an edge. "Remain where you are." No one disobeyed. They weren't looking at the predator anymore. They were looking at her. The Carthan war cadet rose slowly from his crouch. "You advanced," he said. Elena glanced at him. It was off balance. It was Apex class. She shrugged faintly. "So." A murmur rippled through the room. The Varelian cadet accessed his wrist slate, pulling up Earth's planetary profile. Gravity. 1.08 galactic standard. Tectonic instability. High. Megafauna classification. Multiple apex-tier organisms per continent. Oceanic predator density. Extreme. Atmospheric volatility. Frequent electrical storms. "Your world qualifies as Category Red," he said quietly. Elena nodded. "Yeah." The Carthan's crest lowered slightly. "Then why do you not carry combat augmentations?" She looked at him, puzzled. "For school. For survival." She considered that. "We don't get issued upgrades when we're born." The instructor stepped closer now, gaze sharp but analytical. "Human Ward," he said, "were you trained for Class 7 predator engagement?" "No, sir." "Military upbringing?" "No, sir." "Enhanced reflex therapy?" She almost smiled. "No." "Then explain your response." Elena hesitated, searching for words. "It was hunting," she said simply. "Yes. And it picked me because I looked smaller." A few cadets shifted uncomfortably. "So?" the instructor pressed. "So predators test the weakest target first," she said. "You don't wait for the second strike." The Carthan stared at her. "You stepped toward it. It overextended. You could have retreated." She shook her head. "On Earth, if you run, you're prey." The words settled into the chamber like gravity increasing. The Varelian's tendrils tightened. "Most species evolve away from constant predator pressure," he said. "You evolved within it." Elena didn't answer. She just set the bent rod down gently on the nearest desk. Medical drones entered the room, lifting the immobilized predator into a reinforced stasis container. It looked smaller now, less mythic, just an animal that misjudged its environment. The instructor folded his hands behind his back. "Cadets," he said, addressing the class, "what you witnessed was not aggression. Silence. It was adaptation." He turned to Elena. You exhibited no adrenaline spike beyond controlled threshold. She blinked. Should I have? Several students exchanged uneasy glances. The Carthan stepped forward one pace. You are average, he asked carefully. Elena nodded. Pretty average. And this, he gestured toward the containment pod being wheeled away, is common for your species? She thought about it. Not daily, she said, but not rare. A low hum of processing spread through the room. Because if this was average, what did exceptional look like? The instructor dismissed the class early. Students filed out more quietly than they had entered. As Elena gathered her slate, the Carthan remained standing near her desk. You didn't enjoy it, he said. She paused. No, but you weren't afraid. She met his gaze steadily. I was aware. He nodded slowly. On worlds like his, fear was survival. On hers, fear was noise you learned to filter. As she walked toward the exit, whispers followed her. Not mocking this time. Measured. Re-evaluating. The Interstellar Academy had welcomed a human girl expecting fragility. Instead, they had witnessed something far more unsettling. Not a monster. Not a warrior. Just a product of a world that never allowed weakness to last long. And for the first time, the galaxy began recalculating what Deathworld really meant. The footage was reviewed 12 times. From 12 angles. Thermal scans. Heart rate overlays. Neurological stress markers. The Academy director watched every second in silence. No combat augmentation, one analyst confirmed. No neural acceleration implants, said another. The director folded his hands behind his back as the holodisplay replayed the moment Elena stepped toward the predator instead of away from it. Pause there. The frame froze. Elena's posture was balanced, centered, calm. Her heart rate, elevated, but stable. No panic spike. No biochemical overload. Just focus. She was not in fight or flight, the director said quietly. She chose fight. The next morning, Elena entered the classroom expecting whispers. She received silence instead. Not the uneasy silence from before. A different one. Measured. The Carthan war cadet was already standing when she walked in. He didn't smirk this time. He inclined his head. It wasn't submission. It wasn't apology. It was acknowledgement. You stepped inside its reach, he said. Yes. That is where most species die. She shrugged lightly. It couldn't generate full force at that angle. He studied her. You saw that in under a second. She tilted her head. It telegraphed. The Varelian nearby shifted his tendrils. Your species evolved pattern recognition under constant threat. Probably, she replied. The instructor entered. This time, he didn't introduce the session immediately. Instead, he addressed the class directly. Yesterday was not a scheduled live scenario. Murmurs. It was an equipment failure. A pause. But your responses were recorded. He activated the holodisplay. Students watched themselves scatter. Some froze. Some attempted formation too late. And then, Elena advancing. The instructor muted the audio. Observe the human's breathing rhythm, he said. Controlled. Intentional. He turned to the class. Predator engagement is not about dominance. It is about decision speed. The Carthan crossed his arms. She decided before it finished its leap. Yes, the instructor replied. And she decided correctly. A new projection appeared beside Elena's freeze frame. Human classification review. Pending. The Virelian blinked. Reclassification. The instructor nodded once. 4 cycles, humans were labeled unpredictable anomalies from a high-risk biosphere. He let the silence stretch. That label was inaccurate. He tapped the panel. The words shifted. Adaptive apex survivors. The room absorbed it slowly. Not Deathworld liability. Not volatile primitive. Adaptive. Apex. Survivor. Elena stared at the display for a moment. Then she looked back at her slate. "Does that change my grades?" she asked quietly. A few cadets almost laughed. Almost. The Carthan stepped closer. "Why didn't you attack first?" he asked. She looked up. It wasn't attacking anyone yet. It was hunting. So was I. He studied her expression. There was no pride in it. No challenge. Just logic. Later that week, joint tactical drills resumed. This time, Elena wasn't placed in observation. She was assigned to squad coordination. No one objected. Not because they feared her, but because they had recalculated. As class ended, the Carthan fell into step beside her. "If that predator had not been stunned," he said carefully, "would you have killed it?" Elena thought about that. "Yes. And you are average?" She smiled faintly. "Pretty average." He didn't laugh, because now he believed her, and that was far more unsettling. The Academy had welcomed a human girl expecting fragility. Instead, they were rewriting doctrine, not because she was the strongest, but because she was the calmest. And in predator worlds, calm was power. 3 months later, no one called her fragile. They didn't call her a monster either. They called her lead. The Interstellar Academy's annual tactical convergence exercise was underway, a multi-species simulation designed to test command under unpredictable stress. It rotated leadership among cadets based on adaptive response metrics. This cycle, the highest score belonged to a human girl from a Category Red world. Elena Ward stood at the center of the holofield, terrain projections shifting around her. Broken cityscape, limited visibility, multiple hostile signatures. Her squad waited. The Carthan War cadet stood to her right now, no longer smirking, crest steady and neutral. "Command?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. She watched the wind direction indicator, checked elevation overlays, counted escape corridors. On Earth, hesitation could kill you, but rushing could kill you faster. "Contain, don't collapse," she said finally. "Virelian, flank left, slow pressure. Carthan, high ground, don't engage unless they break line." "And you?" the Carthan asked. "I'll draw focus." The simulation triggered. Hostile drones emerged, faster than expected. 2 cadets flinched. Elena didn't. She moved deliberately into partial visibility, making herself the most obvious target. On Earth, predators fixate. You give them something clear, something predictable. Then you control it. The drones shifted toward her position, exactly as intended. Carthan now. He moved with precision, cutting off their retreat vector instead of charging head-on. Virelian, Titan. Energy pulses pinned the drones between coordinated arcs. No panic. No chaos. 30 seconds later, the field went still. Simulation complete. 0 casualties. The instructor stepped forward, studying the aftermath. Why containment? He asked. Elena shrugged slightly. They weren't escalating. You could have wiped them. Yes. Why didn't you? She looked genuinely confused by the question. Because I didn't need to. The words settled into the chamber more heavily than any display of brute strength ever had. Later, as cadets dispersed, the Carthan remained behind. You do not dominate the field, he said slowly. You shape it. Elena adjusted her slate strap. On my world, she said, if you try to dominate everything, something bigger eats you. He considered that. Your species is feared across sectors. She nodded. Yeah. Is it deserved? She paused. Only if someone forces it to be. That evening, a formal Academy bulletin was transmitted across multiple systems. Human tactical adaptation. Survival-based cognition produces rapid environmental recalibration. Low emotional destabilization under predator threat. Recommendation: integration into advanced command tracks. The phrase that followed circulated even wider. Deathworld does not mean monster. It means practiced. From that cycle forward, no one in the Academy laughed when a human entered a room. They recalculated. Not because humans were the strongest. Not because they were the most aggressive, but because they had mastered something far more dangerous, the ability to choose when not to be. Years later, cadets would still whisper about the day the quiet girl in the back row stepped toward a predator, not as a legend of violence, but as proof of something unsettling. On a world where everything hunts, humans learned to hunt smarter. And the most dangerous Deathworld instinct of all? Knowing when restraint wins faster than fear ever could.